we are waiting for two of our actual co-speakers. So if you don't mind, we'll be a little more patient for them to join. But in the interest of all of our busy schedules, I guess we might plan on starting in like 4 or 5 minutes if they don't join before then.
Yeah, or a little, yeah, that's right. It's just turned 1 o'clock, so I think give folks at least a minute or two to finish logging in. But we've got a good group. I see some familiar faces and some folks on our steering committee. Thanks for everyone who's joining. Even got a sleeping, looks like a husky. Oh, Adam. Yeah, I thought I recognized that dog. How you doing, Adam? You feeling better? You said you had like 24 stitches removed last week or something.
26, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks. I mean, I had back-to-back trips to Iceland and Beijing, and as soon as I got back, I was sick. I caught it from some guy sitting next to me on the flight.
Mhm.
In the middle of that, yep, I managed to do some real damage.
Yeah. Welcome everyone. As you keep plugging in, we're trying to give one or two of our co-presenters an extra minute to join, but I do want to be respectful of your time. We'll kick things off in a minute or two, so welcome.
Mhm.
If you aren't a planned speaker, we'll just ask you to be respectful and mute your microphone. But again, welcome, and we'll get things started here momentarily. Ed, do you have Trenton's number?
Oh, let me see. Yeah, I know he knows about it. We talked about it yesterday, but let me see if I have it on my phone.
I know Delano said he might be
He's
a few
on.
minutes late. Is
Hmm?
Trenton
He's
on?
on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If Trenton's on, yeah, I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, Delano said he would be joining late, so we should not wait for him. So if Trenton's on, I think we're
Let's get
set.
started. All right,
Mhm.
just to double check, Ed, you're recording?
Yeah, we are recording, and let me pull up my. I can start my share. Don't have a lot of slides, but here we go. Patrick, you want to kick it off, or you want me to?
Put it in presentation mode and we'll go for it.
Oh yeah. So,
Wonderful.
very good.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Pacific Northwest Regional Interest Group's first webinar, and we thought it was very timely to have something shortly thereafter the GRC, or Geothermal Rising's signature event, the Geothermal Rising's Conference, this past year, a couple weeks ago. And so the purpose of this webinar was to have a gathering, have a meeting of like-minded individuals, either members of the PNW rig or just interested in geothermal. But to have a fluid conversation. There's several core members here that will be speaking and sharing their sort of high-level takeaways from the conference. But we really wanted to kind of get through that content and then have an engaging kind of open conversation wherever that may lead. And hopefully you find some value out of that. So thank you very much for joining. Ed, you want to take this?
Sure. Yeah. No, what we had talked about, and this all grew out of discussions at the GRC. Now, last month, I think Craig Dunn's on this call. We had talked about having a presentation on developments at Meager Creek, and I hope that we can do that at some point in the future. But since we had the people around the table and we were talking about what can we do that we know will happen in a couple 3 weeks, we just said, well, let's just have a debrief on the GRC, because there's just, even if you're there, you can't cover everything. There's so much going on. We actually had rig events out on the patio. It was hard to take it. There were probably 10 or 12 folks who gathered around our Pacific Northwest rig table. A number of new people joined, including thank you, Aaron, for the introduction to Ellen, she came and was an important part of our conversations. And Delano there on the right, he'll be talking to us in a few minutes. And you can see Patrick in the background, towering above everybody. So so yeah. So I think we're going to talk about the background. I've got a slide on intro to Geothermal Rising. Based on the people I see on the call, I think a lot of that won't be necessary. We cast a broad net, so I wanted to make sure that people who are a lot of folks I talked to at conferences. I was at a conference yesterday. They're not quite sure what geothermal even is. So I wanted to make sure that our rig is targeting not only people that are industry insiders, but also provide an on-ramp to people who are just curious about geothermal, people from utilities and other parts of our community so that they can come up to speed on what we're about. Then I'll pass it off to Patrick, who will give his takeaways, to Trenton, who was also at the Hot Rock Symposium that immediately preceded the GRC. And Delano came with a whole delegation, I think of 5 or 6 people from Central Washington University. He was the first time GRC, that he'll represent a new perspective on the demand side, people who want to use geothermal energy. So I think I'm looking forward to his comments, and then a general discussion among the people on it. And finally, and I think Trenton may have some updates on this, we're planning a holiday party in Seattle somewhere to be determined. We're tentatively targeting December the 12th for an in-person party to welcome back to Seattle Susan Petty, who's one of the longtime thought leaders in the geothermal community.
Awesome.
So the GRs, in fact, I'll come to this. I put it in the wrong place. Let me go to the next one, then I'll go back to that slide. Geothermal Rising is a tax-exempt 501c3 trade association. I think it's one of the old, maybe it claims to be the oldest geothermal trade association in the world, founded in 1972. And Susan said she was there when it was founded. So it's been around a while. It arguably may be it's the largest or one of the largest geothermal organizations. It tends to have a North American focus, but it also has worldwide, activity. It also has a policy 501c, I think, 4 arm that can do things in politics that a 501c3 can't do. And we had the Geothermal Rising Conference in Hawaii, and that's where these. Let me pass it back to Patrick.
Sure.
Patrick pulled together the numbers on the GRC this year.
Yeah, and I think there's a few GRC people attending on this. I don't see them because I'm looking at a shared screen, but Cam, speak up if I misrepresent. But I wanted to provide a bit of a graphic, high level by the numbers. There was over 1,200 attendees, which, to be honest, I think shocked everyone because of Hawaii being relatively remote compared to the continental US and a tiny bit more expensive. But the 1,200 attendees really validates some of my takeaways I'll get to in a moment. Over 450 papers, 150 presentations, 6 different pre-conference workshops, 36 sessions of those technical papers. 100 plus posters were qualified. I don't know if 100 posters were on display, but I think 100 papers qualified for posters, presentations, 6 different field trips, and 3 different short courses. So the GRC, or Geothermal Rising, made the GRC a huge success, and I think the industry where we see today globally is really pushing these numbers and validating that we're here to stay. And the excitement around geothermal as a whole is evident when you look at this slide. So very, very exciting indeed, and a very successful week.
No, I think so. And part of that, one of the earlier one of the things that also preceded the GRC itself, a couple 3 days before that, was the first, and it's organized by Geothermal Rising, but it was the first international indigenous geothermal symposium. And because our rig, when we're relatively new, the Geothermal Rising board chartered our rig to cover Oregon, Washington State, and British Columbia in the middle of February of this year. And we had a series of cord group calls over the last few months, getting ready for building out our communities in these locations. And part of that ramp out was to see, well, how can we get in touch with the tribes? Because certainly in Washington State and in Oregon, the tribes are active, certainly, and have a strong interest in the energy space. In Washington's Geothermal Resources Act that was passed in the last session. In the hearings leading up to that, tribal representatives from two tribes, testified, to our legislature on why they were, well, at first what their concerns were about geothermal, but then they ultimately supported it going through. And a lot of the geothermal resources in the U.S. as well as internationally actually happen to be in historical lands, for not only historical lands of indigenous peoples, but in many cases on actual reservations. And so it is another resource that is of fundamental interest to tribal communities around the world. So the highlights, and I was invited to attend this, and this is the last day. There was a lot of ceremony, especially in the beginning and the end. Very indigenous. A lot of people, you hear a lot of different languages from a lot of different tribes and groups around the world, but it's quite diverse. Jessica Eagle Bluestone, I don't know if she's on the call today, but she did a fantastic job of organizing this. It was extremely well organized, really impressive people who came and spoke to us. We had a number of different, communities from the Maori people in New Zealand who actually have started and are part owners of major enterprises that employ 1,000 people, major geothermal, energy plants along with direct use industrial applications. Really impressive stuff, and actually economically sustainable as well. We had the president, I think, of the Kenya Geothermal Association attended. Several First Nations from Canada, the Tutuka First Nation up in northern British Columbia talked about a project. It's one of the first electricity generating projects in Canada. Several Native Hawaiian communities were represented in one, was one case study that was delivered from up near Nome. And, I picking up on, I think, what Patrick didn't say, but it was somewhat controversial about having this event in Hawaii, but having come to this particular pre-meeting, I sort of got it. It's sometimes when you have an event someplace, and this ties over to what we want to do with our rig as well, you can actually help catalyze and help things on the ground there. And the Big Island of Hawaii has an ORMAT plant at Puna, but they've also faced some resistance of people who due to various misinformation or concerns about, the Hawaiian sacred traditions have had some concerns about that. So we learned a lot from the Puna plant as well as some of the Native Hawaiian leadership on how to manage that. How do you anticipate resistance? How do you anticipate people who have different views and who may actually come out in opposition to what you're trying to get accomplished? And how do you work with them? And the same issues in other parts of the world. There were like several tribes from Taiwan, and incredibly similar stories. Developers come in, don't tell anybody what's going on. Just try to, I understand why, because they're investor driven and they don't want to spend a lot of money, but they basically bulldoze their way trying to get permits and do not adequately involve tribes. So anyway, a lot of case studies. It was full of information, but it was also full of bonding. One of the things that emerged from this, the results were an Indigenous Geothermal Declaration that was read later that week at the Geothermal Rising Conference. It hasn't, I don't think, been published yet, so I won't steal that thunder in case there's some wording that changes. But we did come up with the basics of a set of themes that we would like to put out there in terms of the importance of respect for indigenous people's rights. The importance of native language, incredibly important, not only in the US, where a lot of these languages are at risk of dying out, but even internationally. The Maori actually are using this, and in Hawaii, native Hawaiian language, to translate geothermal terms like geothermal reservoir into Native Hawaiian or to Maori. So all this part of the community outreach to actually create new vocabulary. Not all of these terms have to come from English. And who knows, maybe some of these indigenous terms may actually spread. Again, it helps to have additional buy-in. So again, as Jessica said in her LinkedIn post today, watch this space. And each of the topics that we talk about today, I think could serve as a deep dive in a future webinar sometime in 2025. So with that, I'll pass it off to Patrick, who gave me this. You want to take it from
Thanks,
here?
Ed.
Mhm.
Yeah, just briefly, I recognize a ton of people on this call, so thank you for joining. Not everyone is part of the Pacific Northwest group, so that means a lot that we're casting a wide net. I've spent 17 years in this industry, believe it or not. I used to be one of the new kids on the block. Now I'm not. And my father spent 45 years drilling geothermal wells around the world. So I've been around geothermals in my blood, but I went a different route. I went on the sales, marketing, and strategic kind of leadership side of things, where a lot of my peers were geologists or engineers or geoscientists, way smarter than me in the room when it comes to the science of geothermal. But what I do bring to the table is experience in messaging, marketing, and communications, and was part of the early workshops with Baseload Capital and GR and the IGA in identifying and brainstorming how we can break through this sort of threshold that we've found ourselves in of kind of talking to ourselves about how great geothermal is, and where we can bridge those gaps from an education and outreach standpoint. And so the Baseload Capital, the GR, and many other both individual stakeholders and entities have signed on to this declaration of communication, which essentially highlights several key takeaways such as unified messaging, clear definitions and vocabulary, focusing on stability and sustainability, overcoming those misconceptions by leveraging some of that standard messaging, and being more collaborative. Now, it's easier said than done, but this declaration of communication is 30 plus pages. It includes a ton of information on what we can do as an industry, what we can do as individuals and as a whole to really help spread the word, for lack of a better term, of all things geothermal to the greater world, to K through 12 education, to policymakers, to investors, other key stakeholders, indigenous tribes, and corporate America, corporations around the world, to further understand what geothermal is. And one of the biggest reasons why this was put in place was it's really easy to talk about solar or wind in pretty simple terms. Prior to sort of the movement that we're experiencing right now in this declaration, many of us found ourselves talking about geothermal to people who may not know much about geothermal in higher level, more scientific, more complex terms, which in turn was harder to kind of conceptualize, harder to understand if you weren't in the industry. And so we really needed to simplify it. And the Geothermal Rising did a brilliant job with their rebranding and renaming, with slogans like heat beneath their feet and let the earth save the earth and things like that, where it simplifies what we're all about in our industry. And so what I wanted to cover on this slide basically was there's a declaration of communication. It is published. They're looking for even more signatures, more ambassadors, more people to adopt and embrace it. So please take a look at it. I think you can Google Declaration of Communication. It'll pop up you can download the PDF, and I'm pretty sure Baseload Capital and GR have it as a download as well. So with this slide still up, I did want to just kind of take a step away, although this is a huge takeaway for me. There's three core words that come to mind when I look back at this past event, and that's essentially progress, momentum, and recognition. Many of us on this call that I recognize and don't can admit that we are seeing more progress today than we had 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and when I first started. It's incredible to see how many projects are coming online, how many more people are entering the industry. There was a period of time where no one was entering the industry and not a lot was happening that wasn't already developed. It was being maintained but not expanded upon. And so there's definite progress, whether it's fervo energy or other EGS or AGS commercial demonstrations, new scientific discoveries presented in the technical papers, or just technology evolving to maximize and optimize existing resources for longer term duration. When I talk about momentum, it's kind of a piggyback off that progress. Again, I've been sort of focused on the sales, marketing, messaging, and outreach and leadership of geothermal for my entire career. And I have never in my 16, 17 years ever seen this amount of energy, no pun intended, excitement, and volume of people involved in the industry than I have today. And that's evidence of all of our hard work. That's evidence of our messaging finally clicking. Whether it's the DOE or other major investment entities giving us money to do more things with geothermal. It's really, really exciting. And then recognition, and this is kind of a two-way term. It works in multiple ways. Recognition, we are giving more recognition where it needs to be given, shared. Look at women in geothermal. Look at other deserving entities, the indigenous community, or other underserved regions around the world. We're recognizing energy independence. We're looking to help to allow geothermal to provide that sort of independence and stability. But we are, as a whole, again, piggybacking off the momentum and piggybacking off of the progress, is we're being recognized. We're no longer that sort of stepchild in the corner to solar, wind, and hydro. We are a valid, renewable, and part of the discussion. And those are my core takeaways from my lens of a very successful Geothermal Rising Conference. So I'll pass it on to back to Ed and over to Trenton, I think.
Yeah. No, thank you, Patrick. No, that's good. We can come back to some of these themes, but no, Trenton, I think you're up next.
Okay, let's see here. And I didn't get my slides to you in time, so I've got just a separate slide deck here.
Well, I'll stop mine. Go ahead.
And I'm gonna go the opposite let's see here, direction from Patrick and go super technical. And because that's kind of my expertise and experience. So, and talk about the Clean Air Task Force Super Hot Rock Energy workshop that occurred before the GRC. GRC was great, but I just thought this is something I can specifically talk about is this workshop that I was part of. And in fact, right there you see Susan Petty, who hopefully should be at our coming to our party, our holiday party here in December. And just a real high level of why we think that this workshopping group, Clean Air Task Force, has been working on Super Hot Rock for a couple of years now. Why it's an important part of the geothermal solution for decarbonizing in energy generation worldwide. And basically, super hot rock is rock above 375 degrees C, and it's got ultra high enthalpy. What that enables is power plants that have higher capacities. So you can start to talk about 100 megawatt plants instead of, say, smaller plants. Nothing wrong with those smaller plants, but it's just, I think one thing about geothermal is we want to be kind of pushing all the levers to grow. Reduces the number of wells with higher megawatts per well, which lowers the total cost and footprint of the power plants. And via increased turbine efficiency, reduces the capital and operational expenses. So as you can see here in this chart, the first project of a super hot rock project might cost in the, say, over $100 a megawatt range, but eventually we can reach, if we go hot enough, to say $40 a megawatt, and then geothermal is now competitive with all other geothermal resources. So this is kind of the flavor of the workshop that you're at, and I see Alon Bonneville's on this call too. He was part of it as well. but the Pacific Northwest hook really is that there is a super hot rock EGS project started down at Newberry Volcano. Alon is the PI. We have some other potential projects. Mount Meager has super hot wells as well. And then Mount Augustine, there's a presentation by guys from Ignis and GeoAlaska about a shallow magma body on Mount Augustine. Of course, Alaska's, I think, can be part of the Pacific Northwest as well by some definitions. And the other thing about the Clean Air Task Force is there were people from New Zealand, Japan, and Iceland talking about their project. So we're part of this here in the Pacific Northwest. We're part of this community now that is working on, I think, one of the greatest, most exciting challenges in geothermal right now, which is the super hot. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm excited about all the other parts of geothermal as well, just like Patrick was talking about with all temperatures. But this is the one that for me was a key takeaway.
All right. Well, thank you, Trenton. That was fascinating. And I had wondered, I had hoped to go to that conference as well, but it was at the same time as the Indigenous one. So let me let's see. You stopped yours. Next, I think is going to be Delano. I think Delano's on the call. Are you there, Delano? I think.
Yep, I'm here. I apologize. I was on a call. So give me 1 second here. Let me share my screen. And I apologize. I'm staring straight into the light.
Oh yeah, no. Sometimes I can take it. And no, appreciate it because this was Delano's first time coming. Also, Delano represents a variety of perspectives, but among which is the demand side of institutions like Central Washington University. It actually is not only is an implementer and a user of geothermal energy. So we have a lot of supply side folks, people who are suppliers of geothermal services and technologies, but all that is driven by demand. And so thank you for
Yeah,
putting this together.
absolutely, absolutely. I think I've got several other members of my team that are on the call. Hopefully, Anthony Schoen with MW Engineers and maybe Jeremiah Allers or Jeff Busan are on. I can't see them, but hopefully, if you guys are there, feel free to speak up on anything I did not hit on. But this is just for CW. So just to give you an idea, Ed was right. We had a 5-member team here, including myself, Jeremiah Eilers, who's our building energy manager, Joe Chanisser, and Gary Gleason, our construction project coordinators, Jeff Busan, our sustainability officer, and we brought MW engineers, Anthony Schoen, who is our principal engineer lead for the geothermal system that we're currently drilling at CW. In fact, that right there, that image is of the well that we are currently drilling, about to test this month for our first system. So we went into this conference with some key objectives as a university, again, as a user. One, we had never been exposed to GRC, so we wanted to understand what this was about. We wanted to gain understanding on the presentation styles and topics in general organization. Really, for us, it's gaining resources. We wanted to find out a lot more information on what we do and what we don't know associated with geothermal technology. So that was a big aspect of this. Gain some more understanding as far as the technologies, the pros, the cons. These are things that we have to advise our leadership team at the university. And then if we're going for funding with the state, we need to understand the pros and cons because we're going to be questioned about those things. And then position ourselves for future Geothermal Rising conferences. This is absolutely an opportunity for our institution to get our brand out there, to plant our flag. This is a collaborative effort with the MW Engineers, who's been working with CW for a very long time in a lot of master planning aspects. So this is absolutely beneficial to them as well. And then truly plant our flag as Washington State's public sector leader. There's only one other institution in the state that has geothermal currently, and that's Gonzaga. They are private, but we want to be the public leader. Just because we are a smaller school doesn't mean we can't be the leader in something like this. So we went into this with a very aggressive knowledge base, and hence why we had a good team. And I'm very blessed to be at a university that we had the administration that supported our attendance to this and kind of sees the bigger picture. Some notable observations, and again, for those that on CW or MW team that are on the presentation, feel free to speak up. These are the things that we kind of talked about post meeting. Um, these are some observations. So there were a lot of technology experts associated with it, a lot of research institutions like the white papers that you all were kind of mentioning, a lot of government resources from a funding, prospect projects, seeing what's out there standpoint, and then there were seemed to be a lot fewer utilizers like us that are installing. So we were actually kind of surprised to that. We thought we were going to see a lot more of that, but we went in that conference and we are like, holy cow, we're the customer amongst a whole bunch of sellers of technology and these kinds of things. So it was really interesting to be in there. And then very, very, very few higher education representatives, especially that were actually utilizers. Most of them were doing the research associated with the technology in lieu of the actual installation. So we found ourselves in a very rare place, which is great for us. The geothermal technology is clearly in a constant process of refinement, especially around the process, the financing, the education, and innovation. So we're getting in the doors at a very early stage, not early stage of geothermal, but we're in the right time kind of situation to understand what's going on and really gain some more understanding. We did notice that most of the presentations were definitely geared towards closed loop system. There was obviously avenues for open loop, but by far and large, that's where we saw most of those systems. And the whole GRC conference was very large. And even for the 6-man team that we had there, we didn't get to every single thing, but we had some good spread out to just be able to collect as much information as possible. Um, and then obviously, probably the biggest thing is there is not plenty, there's a lot of government funding resources, but everybody's going for the same dollar. So it's going to be really interesting in pivoting ourselves and our story for that because the downside of our institution is we're not for profit. We're a university. So we're there truly for the aspect of being able to present our brand, create the curriculum for our students, and really sell it as, hey, we are developing the talent that will be utilized in the geothermal industry. So that's the way we want to go about this. And so we're really interested in that. It was also a great opportunity to confirm some assumptions that had going in there. First, again, this is by far and large to MW and McKinstry in the lighter part, as far as the type of technology that we're utilizing. Our current system is a fourth generation geothermal system in effect that we're using it for building, heating, and cooling. But it seems to be the right type of system for us. We're definitely very blessed to be in a geographical location that's the benefactor of being able to do an open loop system. By far and large, when we heard different presentations, it seems as though open loop systems seem to be more economical if it was palatable, if it was feasible. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but time will tell, and we'll see over as we gain some more knowledge. The best thing for us is that there seemed to be geographical uh, evidence that we could pursue power generation, which is something that we absolutely want to do as an institution. And fortunately, again, we've got administrative support to be able to pursue that. And then again, we were the only higher education representatives in the state of Washington, and we want to keep it that we are at the forefront of that technology from higher education. Again, we want to plant our flag as the leader of this technology going forward in the state of Washington. Some new resources, and this is not all of them. There are a whole bunch more that we met and talked to, but these are just a couple of few that we had and met while we were at while we were at Geothermal Rising. That's going to be helping us out with more conversations. I appreciate all the conversation that I had with several of you on here. Patrick, Ed, thank you both. Patrick, you are a lot taller than you even look on screen. I'll let you know that. Uh, but it was great talking to you and letting us know that even in the world of geothermal rising, that it's just a small percentage in what's being done around internationally. And so that really gives us great perspective on the resources that are out there. So we're looking forward to having a lot of dialogue and a lot of conversations over the next couple of months. Just so folks are aware, in the state of Washington, a lot of our funding is associated with what's called a Climate Commitment Act. The voters in the state of Washington did decide to keep that funding a resource around for us, which is a big thing because there's going to be a couple big aspects for us. This PowerPoint slide is a representative of our decarbonization map. You can see some pretty large dollar figures associated with capital requests over the next couple bienniums. It was really hinged upon how we could build future geo-eco nodes around campus utilizing an open loop system for building heating and cooling. But now that we have better insight on the availability of power generation geothermal, that's something that we'll be pursuing. So there's just a lot of opportunities and upside for us, especially with the passing of the Climate Commitment Act, and it's at least in the state of Washington. So we're going to be very busy in the foreseeable future on what this looks like. Now, there's some federal impacts that we still got to wait and see what happens in a Q1, Q2 through the legislative sessions, but we're pretty excited about what the prospects are for Central Washington University. If you are interested in keeping up with what we're doing on our university, there's our QR code. It takes us straight to our Capitol page, and we'll be keeping everyone abreast of where we're going. So I'm going to stop there presenting for a second. Anthony or anyone else that came with our CW team, if you're on and you want to speak to that, feel free to.
I think you nailed the comprehensive view of the GRC event and what it meant to our team and just a resource bank of different technologies. And I think the opportunity that CW and this team brought to provide insight to other people that are looking to do this is a tremendous opportunity. Well done.
Yeah, well, thank you both, and all of you really for sharing your highlights. I see a lot of familiar faces and names on here. I think this is the time on our agenda where we wanted to. Before we go to Q&A, I want to go back to Trenton on the holiday party. Wait a minute, is Trenton still here?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. So do we confirm the date for that? The 12th.
Yeah, I think that'll work for Susan. And yeah, let's go ahead and start moving ahead with that date. And then,
All right.
Well, what we're talking about is having it somewhere in Seattle, most likely North Seattle, like Wallingford, the University District. That's certainly convenient for me and a few others, but I think it's fairly central, convenient for Susan Petty as well. And our idea is to find a back room in a hotel, a restaurant or bar that we can reserve, not necessarily pay any extra for, but just talk to the owner and do that. So I think that's something I'll be looking into. And if anyone has ideas about their favorite bar or restaurant or brewery in North Seattle, but I've got ideas. So
yeah, well, thank you, Trenton. And this is just the first of, I think, of what we want to have several in the coming year and other places that are hotbeds of geothermal interest, pun intended. Ellensburg, Washington comes to mind, and Spokane comes to mind, and there's probably several places. Bend, Oregon, who knows? But let us know if you think there's a critical mass, and we got a banner, and we'll come down there, and we'll have some. Not just have some drinks, but hopefully we'll find a place where we can, build the relationships that we need to introduce ourselves to each other and to the opportunities that might bring.
Yeah, I definitely support that. And I think we should touch each of the core cities. So Vancouver, British Columbia, Newbury, all the way around. I want to just say a few things before I encourage everyone who stayed on the call to share your thoughts. And I know a few of us on this call have been in this industry and at this event long enough to know that for a very long time, we were only utility scale power production kind of messaging. And there was this whole other sort of heat pump industry, the whole other bucket of geothermal, and they didn't really coexist. I mean, they all fell under the banner of geothermal, but they didn't there's a strength in numbers, and it was a wise decision during the rebranding kind of era a couple years ago that we sort of had a bridge set, and we brought, the JEGs of the world and the Celsius and the Bright Core and institutions like CWU are a perfect example of sort of that bridge being set. And Delano, I wanted to give you guys a shout out for your thought leadership, for your presence in Hawaii, and hopefully, with that excitement, that your staff or your kind of student body maybe submit a few papers for the next year's conference, and can spread the word and maybe get more institutions like yourselves attend. Being that it's in Reno next year, it should be a lot easier, I think, on the budget pocketbook for other um, smaller institutions to attend. So hopefully, this is just the start of strengthening and widening that bridge for more of the utilizers or the end users like CWU to be in attendance. There are a few questions I think that were sent in the chat, but I also, at least half of these names on the call, I think were also in attendance. So we got through the kind of slides. Does anyone else want to just give us your 2 cents about your input of the conference? Or again, as Ed said, this is the Q&A period. Speak up. I know John Tuttle was there. Not to put you on the spot, John. I just see you're on camera, and a few others. But yeah, I'll stop talking and turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, don't mind being on the spot, Patrick. Great work, guys. And I will say that my initial plan was not even to attend the GR because I feared in Hawaii it was probably going to have a lower attendance. But because of the interest in Hawaii, there were more papers, I believe, presented. We had two that we co-authored, one that ended up being a poster instead because there were just too many papers to even evaluate. And of course, being closer to the Asian countries and probably Central America as well. It's good to see Taiwan there, Indonesia, and the Philippines in strength. I was floored, I'll have to admit, and I've been to over 25 of these things myself, having been in the business since the late 70s. Very impressed. And Patrick, you hit on the diversification, finally getting away from just conventional geothermal into obviously EGS and super hot rock, but also the direct use and getting the universities involved, the customers involved. Yeah, geothermal's hot. I was here during a boom time back in the late 70s through the 80s, and then it disappeared for about 15, 20 years almost. It's back now, and that's for darn sure. And renewables, I believe, are here to stay. And it's going to need youngsters. I'm on my way out. It's really going to need youngsters to engage and really get involved in this industry because it is the future. It really is. And Patrick, Ed, call on me anytime. I'll help any way I can. I'm over near Spokane myself now, but because I'm recently retiring, I'll have more energy and time to be able to participate and add what little bit I have left to add. But fantastic job, Patrick. It was great to see your son up there on the stage.
Yeah,
I
know.
That was fantastic. And
yeah.
I've talked to a couple other people because Reno is so close. I think we're going to see something similar probably at the next GRC convention or GR convention.
Yeah.
Anyway, good stuff. Excellent
show.
John. Very impressive.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, John. You and I go way back. I definitely started my career during the lean time you referenced, so it's nice to be on the top of that wave. Hopefully, it continues to swell. Yeah, that was one point you brought up. My son, I was one of the 3 sort of proud parents in the audience on the opening day, where there was like a future leaders panel. Gabrielle Skog from Baseload Capital moderated a panel with Kirsten from Deep, Janine from Ever, and Jack from Fervo. So 3 major companies, 3 thought leaders from each of those companies were grilled by 9, 10, and 11-year-old kids asking about how they can, prepare the future leaders for tomorrow, but also save the planet. And I thought it was very well intended. I think if I could do anything differently, I'd maybe let the kids actually come up with their own questions and see how interesting that gets. But it's exciting. And I think in the chat There's some mention of a student chapters. So Delano, let's talk offline, not only about CWU, but how we can better engage some of the students around the topic of sustainability. Not every institution has a geothermal program, but we can make sure geothermal has a seat at those respective sustainability tables.
Yeah, and to that point there, Patrick, what I was raising my hand for is I would like to understand if there are institutions that are already out there creating that geothermal curriculum.
Yeah,
We'd love to be able to understand that because it's great to reinvent the wheel your way, but if there's something that's already out there, maybe as some of the industry leaders are on here, if you are recruiting from specific universities because of the curriculum they put together, it'd be helpful to know. CW has those outlined in business, in construction management, and geology, and those kinds of stuff. But tying that all together, what is the industry looking for as far as that expert? Is it a mechanical engineer? Is it a geologist? Is it a hydrologist? Those are the kinds of questions that, as an institution, we're trying to answer so that we can create the curriculum for it.
perfect. I think Vanessa turned her camera on to maybe answer that
Yeah.
question directly. Not to
Oh,
put you on the
yes,
spot.
hi. Yeah, I was gonna say all of the above. They need all of the above, which is not the straightforward answer. And not every student is, has the capability or the interest to go to a 4-year, 8-year PhD program. So really showcasing to students early on that there are apprenticeship programs, that there are certification programs, there are universities that have programs. UNR up in Reno has a geothermal center, and we're trying to re-establish a geothermal academy. So I know you and I have a meeting in a couple of weeks, so lots going on out there, and excited, as the director of education and policy to kind of bring these worlds together and continue to share it with all of you. As you know, it's a busy time for geothermal, whether you've been in the industry for 17 years, but if you're newer to geothermal, it's even busier. So
Yeah,
excited to see the momentum and get students engaged. So I did put that in there. We are looking also always for mentors to help with our student members, because really bringing students to the industry and industry to the students is how we're going to create a sustainable pipeline. Pun
that's
intended.
great. Thanks, Vanessa. Just to kind of finish that thought on this sort of line of thinking, and we can move to some of the more broader questions. Just off the top of my head, Delano, Stanford, Southern Methodist University, Oklahoma University. Those are three that come to mind that I know have programs. University of Nevada, Reno, Trenton, help me out here. There's the MIT and Cornell have done some geothermal projects. I'm not entirely sure if they have a curriculum, but I could be wrong. But there's a growing number of institutions and universities that have geothermal specific programs.
Yeah, and I think, that the universities are a little bit of a lag, right? So that some of these projects, like Patrick said, we were in the downtimes for a while, and I think that some of the universities are still building up. Like, unfortunately, SMU lost a lot of their capabilities when Dave Blackwell retired and passed away. But I think it's starting. I know Furbo is now doing some. I think the local community college near their project in Milford has gotten some new program. So I think that's definitely building. So I think this is something that this group can help with too. Is just
Yeah.
trying to get, I think, the educational outreach part, trying to get something going at University of Washington, for example, and the local universities of the Pacific Northwest is something that can be a goal of this rig.
That's great.
Hey, just no offense to our Husky fans that might be on here, but as a Central Washington guy, if you have that knowledge base, get it to us first.
All right. Okay, so we didn't specify if you had a question to put it in the chat, but there are a few questions that have been, and then maybe we can open it up to everyone else. Ray Alvarado, if you're still on the call, you sent the first one in, and you asked, what are the biggest takeaways from the event directly relatable to further geothermal development in Washington as well as BC? I would maybe defer this to Trenton Adam or Craig, not to put you guys on the spot, if you're still on the call.
But if Alon's on, certainly the Mazama project at Newberry, recently funded is exciting. Yeah, there are certainly exciting things starting and restarting, I would say, in Washington, but I don't know that any were discussed so much in GRC because it's early days. I know there's a project starting up in Whatcom County to look at Mount Baker as a potential resource again. One thing is a lot of projects in geothermal have been around for a while, and every time we get a boom, we look at them again. And since the economics are changing so much, I think it's going to be better. Washington has enjoyed cheap and plentiful electricity for long enough that geothermal has been suppressed, I would say. And that is no longer the case. The demand is rising. Supply is not. So geothermal can step into that breach, and I think there's definitely going to be a lot more opportunities for projects that got looked at once before, but we're going to get looked at again.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, did he freeze?
Okay. No, the Mazama project is what was one of my highlights. Hearing, I didn't want to steal any thunder, so I didn't speak to it. But these are some of these projects are probably worthy of a webinar all to themselves, maybe in the coming year when things are further along. I think there's progress in BC because of BC Hydro, as Craig Dunn has mentioned before, is now turned into, BC is now a net importer of energy. It used to be an exporter of energy. And that's changed the economics in BC. So there is renewed interest in developing geothermal resources at Meager Creek and possibly other places. So again, that's worth a deeper dive maybe in a future webinar.
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, just being mindful of everyone's time. I think we'll stop at the hour.
Okay.
But another question from Peter Johnson. I joined the rig today. Thank you and welcome. Worked extensively in geothermal modeling, mostly abroad. Only recently came back to the US. Are there resources available to help connect people like me to projects or operators that need support? First of all, by joining the rig, you're automatically in a network of like-minded people that are going to champion your work and put you in front of the right people. If you haven't specifically become a member of GR, I think that would be a logical next step. Either as an individual or as whatever you classify yourself in the working world. And then staying plugged into other resources like thinkgeoenergy.com and other online resources to be just better informed. There's always tendering opportunities either for consultants or just general news and press releases where you'll get kind of a lay of the land. But definitely being part of the rig, whether it's ours or your specific region, is a great first step to kind of be reconnected. It looks like Peter Zullo asked about oil and gas attendance, specifically as it related to fracking, and we kind of answered that. SOB, Baker, NOV, my employer, Expro were there. It's interesting, Peter. With the energy transition, and please forgive me for talking. You guys can shut me up. I just speaking over me, but I'll just continue to kind of moderate. With the energy transition, there's a lot of attention from oil and gas companies that have transferable expertise, transferable technologies, and solutions that are already tried and tested. It's harder for a company to start from scratch. It's solely focused on geothermal. Believe me, I've been a part of those to start and kind of develop something. But if a technology exists and at scale by some of these major oil and gas companies, it's a logical step to kind of check out what geothermal can do. And so there's a lot of thought leadership being shared by SLB and Baker, Geothermex, which is part of SLB. I'm going to miss a few: Halliburton, NOV, and Expro, just to name a few. Forgive me if you're on the call and I overlooked you, but specifically on fracking, I would have to maybe table that for some of the stimulation work that Fervo is doing. I don't know who that actual supplier is, but I'm sure that information is publicly available. And what or who might be supporting the forge work. But hopefully that gives enough examples for your question. Just scrolling down the list, I don't know if there's most of them just comments.
I see one about the protest. I know that Geothermal Rising said be prepared for protest. I didn't see any there. I mean, I think one reason they may have said that there have been protests on the Big Island of Hawaii around a variety of things, including the observatory on one of the big mountains there. And there were some earlier protests around Puna because of some of the things that were happening around the eruption down on the other side of the island. People were saying were late. It was concerns about the almost the religious dimensions of this, as Pele being a goddess of molten magma. So people were concerned that this was sacrilegious to be using energy. So that might have been a message, but I didn't see any protest at all. In fact, the Native Hawaiian community was really strongly represented there, including some of the elders from that community. So I think that ORMAT looks like they've done a good job at working with the local community to help address concerns.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. Anyone else on the call have a question that is easier just to say than type?
Yes. One thing we might just ask is who might be able to come on this call, might be able to come to the Polity Party on December 12th. Just kind of get a show of hands just so we can get an idea of how big of a place we might be able to look for.
We have a pretty diverse group that's not sort of in this Western Washington corner, but I'm happy to welcome anyone who wants to attend.
I'll see if it's possible, Trenton. I'm that's EGU week in DC, but I'm coming back early. I'm coming back the day before your party in Portland, and I might just possibly be able to go up to Seattle.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. Let us know if you are. We can do dinner or something. That would, No, that's great. Anybody wants to travel. In fact, in future events, I look forward to traveling to some of these other places. But since Susan Petty's moving back to Seattle, just moved this month, it seemed like it was a good opportunity to pull together some of the community people that know her and can gather in North Seattle. But everybody's welcome if you wanted to come to Seattle. And if not, hopefully we'll see you in a town near you in the coming year.
Yeah, just a quick shout out, guys. We have really ambitious plans as a regional rig. That's a redundant as a rig. We want to be like a volunteer community engagement arm for the Manzama group and all the commercial activity at Newberry. Because as we just walked through, having the social license to operate is a huge barrier, and if we can help bridge those gaps, then we're signing up for that. Just north of us in BC, I know Craig, it looks like he had to jump off, but we want to help support the development there and obviously piggyback off of that as the World Geothermal Congress is in Calgary in 2026. So anywhere that we can be of service or support to any of you on this call that needs some sort of representation in numbers, let us know. We're happy to help. And I definitely appreciate you attending. I mean, we kind of threw this together a little last minute, but very hopeful, and having, I think, 22 at the most at one time attend has been great. And hopefully with the recording, we have a lot more people watching and signing up to be part of this Pacific Northwest Regional Interest Group.
Okay, just this is Alain Bonneville. I'm sorry, I've been disconnected for a while. I don't know why. So just to tell you, and thank you for maybe offering your support for the Mazama project at Newberry. So I just wanted to tell you that we have started the operation on the field, and we hope to have completed EGS reservoir at 300C by March, April, and then entering in the Super Hot Rock project funded by DOE later on in 2025. So short.
Wonderful
Communication. Thank you.
No, that's great news. No, let us know when it would be most helpful for us to see if we could mobilize something in your region.
Yeah.
Or even I think, or in the Richland area where you live. So yeah, we're happy to go wherever is most useful.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I think we're at time. Any parting thoughts before we go? Otherwise, we will send out a link to the recording. I assume we'll work with the folks at Geothermal Rising, but I think the plan is to have it on their YouTube channel at some point, like some of the other rigs have done. So hopefully this is the first of a series of webinars on topics of interest to the Pacific Northwest. Thank you all for attending.
Just wanted to thank you both. Great meeting.
Oh,
Thank you all for
Cam.
participating. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Cam, for all your help getting the word out.
Of course. Bye, John.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.